If you love behind the scenes content when it comes to online business and coaching, then stay tuned. I'm going to be giving you a full rundown of behind the scenes of my business in 2022, how much money I made, all the different things that I did, the lessons that I've learned, as well as my intentions for 2023. Let's dive in. Hi there, welcome to the Wholehearted Business Show. I'm Laura and I help health, life and spiritual coaches get more clients, make more money so they can live their most aligned life. Now in this episode of the show, I'm going to be sharing a full rundown behind the scenes of what I was getting up to in my business in 2022. It's been an interesting year. I've got quite a lot of thoughts that I want to share. I'm going to share my income breakdown, my income figures, and I'm going to share a little bit about my intentions for 2023. So if that sounds good to you, that sounds like something that's going to be helpful and interesting. And obviously I do these and it feels quite cathartic for me as well. It's a really helpful process to go through. And just to say as well, when I was reviewing 2022, I used the exact process that I shared in my 2023 planning episode, which was a full planning session that I guided you through, and you could also download the workbook that would accompany that. And I used that exact process, which I found really helpful. So when I started thinking about 2022, what really came up for me was that it went a different way than I would have expected at the start. So I knew that we were hoping that we would get some renovations done to our home, but I didn't actually think, I think I knew that I wanted to get it done. I knew that something needed to happen because I was really struggling not having a dedicated workspace. You know, I run my business. That's what I do for a living. I was really struggling not having a dedicated workspace at all. It was really starting to affect my productivity. It was just really becoming like a big thing. And it was something that I wanted to do. Like, we've had these plans, me and my husband, we've had these plans for a long time to do some renovations to our home, to convert our garage into an office. And as it happens, that did happen. I knew that I wanted that to happen, but I did not expect it to happen as quickly as it actually did end up happening. So that was awesome, but also had a knock-on impact on a lot of the other things that I had planned to do. So at the start of 2022, I talked about running a summit in the business. I talked about like getting on top of my health and well-being and stuff, which I always talk about every year actually, and that's a whole other thing to chat through. And when the building work went ahead and we were able to go ahead with all of that, that had a big knock-on impact on a lot of things basically. So I'll talk a bit through that, and I'll talk about some of the things that I did in my business. Now, just to add as well, I share behind the scenes posts every quarter. So I have one for January to March, April to June, and July to September. I haven't done one for October to December because this is it. So I'm going to go into a bit more detail when I get to October to December, but I'll talk through, just because that's like how things are sitting in my brain, I'll talk through each kind of quarter as I go through. So January to March was really good. I really felt like I started the year off like all guns blazing, all cylinders firing. Like, it was a really good first quarter. I really found a good flow when it comes to my wellbeing practices in the first quarter of the year. So I was working out, I was moving my body, I was eating really well, I was really taking care of myself, and that had such a massive positive impact on things like my anxiety and also my energy levels and things like that. So a massive improvement in the first part of the year. Also business wise, so I think I started off the year with running a live round of my Enchanting Challenges program, and that went really well. And then in February, I ran a paid live training on how to create a multi-platform content show, which is basically how I create the Wholehearted Business Show broken down into tutorials. And I really enjoyed doing that, and you know, I had quite a few people sign up for that, and that was awesome. And then in March, I ran a free online immersion, not quite a challenge, more like a online training experience called Elevate Your Coaching Business. And that went quite well, not quite so well as some of the other challenges and things that I've run in the past. But I did a launch for Wholehearted Business, which, if you don't know what that is, that's my signature 6-month group program where I help coaches get more clients and get the marketing shit together so that they have a system, they know what it is they're doing, they're cutting through all of the overwhelm, and they're actually making progress and getting stuff done and getting clients. Ultimately, that's the real aim of that program. So that was awesome. Really enjoyed doing that, and I got quite a few people join the program, I think, in March. But what I found was that the launching process was actually like really quite stressful. My daughter was sick right in the middle of it, and it just felt it felt like too high pressured for what my life looks like at the moment, with having a small child and a slightly older child, and the way that life can sometimes go when you're a mother and you've got kids. It's just one of those things. So I didn't necessarily enjoy like that high pressured. And sometimes like I have really enjoyed launches, and I'm not saying that I'll never do a launch again, but I found it a little bit tricky just to manage the energy around that. But basically that start of the year was awesome, and at that point as well we'd secured the income for sorting out the renovations, and we were talking to our builder about it. It was absolutely amazing. So we were starting to have this conversation. So really the first part of the year was like, I was on fire, all cylinders firing. It was great. And in that quarter I'm going to look down at my notes, so my total income for that period was $23,626 in pounds, and that was converted at the time, because I know that the pounds and dollars have been doing weird things, so that was converted at the time. And pounds wise, that was £17,984 in that quarter. So I know that I had a 10k month in March, which was really awesome. So I was really pleased and chuffed with that. It's just, at the end of the day, it's not, these are some of these arbitrary kind of like things, but my ego was very pleased with a 10k month. So that was really good fun. And then going into April to June, so I had planned to run a summit, and then quite quickly, I think, going into April, which I don't think a lot happened in April. I know I was off over Easter with the kids. And then in May, I ran a live program, which was like a new program called Connecting Content, that was just focused around content creation, and that included blog school and Pinterest magic and how to create a multi-platform content show. And I worked through that live with some people, and that was really great. That was really effective and really good fun, and people got good results out of that and enjoyed it. So that was really good. And then what I kind of started to realise around about the May, June time, so by that time the building work was fully ongoing, and even though it wasn't affecting our main living space, I just found it quite energetically draining. It was just, I found it really difficult to be productive. I found it really difficult to find a routine. It started to have a knock-on impact in like all the really good well-being habits I built up at the first part of the year, and it was just difficult. And I think we just had one of those, I was just feeling overwhelmed, and it was just a tricky period. So it was just a bit of a funny one. It was fine, it was good, but what didn't feel like the first part of the year felt a lot heavier, just in terms of, I think, of all the stuff that I had going on, certainly around the house and the impact that had. And I think what I realised as well at that stage, and originally the project was going to be the garage conversion and the utility room, which is like on the back of our garage. That was going to be all redone at the same time, because basically the room was just like another garage. It didn't have any heating, it didn't have proper plastering on the walls, all that kind of thing. So we ended up, so it was that project, but then as it started to go on, it was a bit like, okay, we've actually got the opportunity here to do a bit more work and actually get the whole of the downstairs floor of the house, like how, and I say how we wanted, actually it's how I wanted it, to be honest. James, just bless him, goes along with stuff. So we had this opportunity to really get the house done, and to save on budget, so we could make our budget go a bit further, I was going to do a lot of the decorating, and I quite like that. And again, I think I've said in other episodes of the show, I really love interior design. It's a big love of mine. I've loved it for so many years, and really like giving myself time to enjoy the process and be really creative with it. I also signed up, I don't know if it was about this time or whether it was going into the next kind of season, but I signed up for the Fresh Nest e-course with Hannah Boulevard. I'll put a link, and that was really good, and that was so beneficial to just have a place where I could sharing questions about interior design, get support, get advice from Hannah, who's an interior stylist, and that was really helpful. And I knew I just wanted to make it something really special, which it has been, and I'll share a bit more about that as I kind of like ramp things up. But so that became a much bigger focus, I think. And what I kind of did, I think, of the May time, was I made quite a big decision, was that was going to be my focus. Like, obviously I was in the business and doing business stuff, but I wanted this was like a really big creative opportunity for me, and I just really wanted to enjoy the process and actually get the place looking amazing, which it does, I think. So that was really good fun. So really consciously taking my foot off the pedal in the business, and accepting that if I am going to be all in on this renovation project, then something is going to have to give somewhere, and that in some ways was like some of the business stuff. So I always make sure that my clients are looked after. absolute number one priority for me in my business is making sure that my clients are getting what they need. So that never ever changes. But the things that did take a backseat were things like the summit and a lot of the growth stuff. And looking back on 2022, I can see some of the impact of that, but actually not as bad as I thought it would be. So again, I'll talk about that as we get to that point. So that was taking us up to June, and around about this time, I really started to notice that from a well-being point of view, my menstrual cycle was becoming a lot more pronounced in terms of the ups and downs, not mood swings, but the ups and downs in it. And I haven't been on like hormonal anything basically, but I'm really starting to notice, and I don't know if it's like early perimenopause stuff going on, but I was starting to notice that when I'm ovulating, I am like a completely different woman. Confident, I feel great in myself, I feel fantastic, and then it really comes down as I get towards the end of my cycle and the start of and towards my bleed. My mood really changes, and that's become quite pronounced, and my energy levels have become quite pronounced. So that's something I'm really carrying into 2023, and it was around about that time that I really started to notice that change, that shift, that these things were becoming much more pronounced. So going into 2023, really wanting to come back to some of the work that I did a few years ago with Kate Northrup and her Origin program, which really teaches us about how we can live more in alignment with our cycles and plan more of my work and stuff out around that, because it does have such a massive impact on me at the moment. So that was like an interesting observation in myself, I think. So my total income for April to June was $13,830 and £11,390. Happy with that. That was great. Yeah. And then moving on to July and September. July to September, a big part of that is the summer holidays. So something that has always been important to me in my business is that I don't work a lot over the summer holidays, because I want to spend time with the kids. I know that this period in my life and their life is quite fleeting, and one of the reasons I wanted to run my own business was to have the flexibility to be around them. Now, at one point I think I had the aim of being able to take the full summer off, but that wouldn't actually feel good to me. I've talked about this before. My business is very much my self-expression and how I show up in the world, and actually I don't necessarily want to take 6 weeks off from that. So it feels good to have a better balance, and that's working 1 to 2 days, which I did over the 6 weeks holidays, and that was amazing. I also had my 40th birthday, which was really good fun, and I felt so good about myself. Like, I think when you've got these big milestone birthdays, I knew how I wanted to feel, and I really felt the way that I wanted to feel. I felt really good about who I am, about where I am in my life, about how I looked and how I felt. I felt really good, and can't ask for anything more than that. I had a really great night out with my friends, and in fact this year I've had a few really good nights out, and it's something that, you know, I haven't done a lot of, being a mum of young children. Obviously we've had the pandemic and stuff, but honestly, they're just so... I'm not a big drinker, but I do enjoy the odd tipple. But having those nights out are just so... they're just so much fun. It's just so much fun. And I've had such a good time. And like, it's not like I'm going out every weekend, but I've had maybe 3 like big nights out. My birthday was one of them, that have just been so much fun, and actually just that has just been wonderful, and I've really enjoyed myself. So I think there's something to be said there for just doing things that are fun, and it doesn't have to be like hangover city the next day, but honestly it was just so much fun. So I had a really great 40th birthday, a really great celebration, and that was fantastic. And then going into September, so usually September is quite a big month for me, and at this point the building work was done, we were in the office, but I was still doing a lot of the decoration and the rest of the house. So I did some of those things in September, and September was just an odd one. Like I say, usually September is quite a big month for me in business and income wise and things like that, but it felt like quite a sticky, difficult month with a lot of resistance and stuff coming up. So it just felt like a really odd month, and I don't know if it was if there was something going on astrologically, if there was like something was retrograding that I didn't know about, if it was just the cost of living stuff kicking in. I don't know what it was, but it just felt like quite a heavy, sticky, weird month. But things got better in October. So it just felt like a weird one, September. I'm trying to think of what I did. I think I might have done an offer on Wholehearted Business, I think, because I know I did some big changes to how the programme was structured this year and created some milestones so people had a more structured pathway in that programme, which has been working really well. But yeah, it just felt like a bit of a funny one. I did get a new car in September, so there was definitely some real highlights in early September, but it just felt like a more sticky month basically. And my income between July and September was $14,447 and £12,013 in that quarter. So again, I feel like my income was dropping down towards the end of the year, and very much in alignment with like how much work I was doing. It was fine, but there was definitely like that. I can really see the difference in terms of like when I'm putting myself out there more and when I'm more in the business in terms of my income, and I think that's to be expected. So that was my income between July and September. And then moving on to October to December. So things started to pick back up towards the back end of the year. Like I said, that a lot of the redecoration and stuff that we were doing in the house was getting progressed. So there was still quite a lot of that going on, and I was really putting myself under a bit of pressure to get stuff done for Christmas, which most stuff I did get done, most of it, but there was still quite a lot. And in October, so what I did in October was I released a few slots for, this is like a fun little program that I sometimes offer when it feels fun to do so, and this is my Get It Done program. It's 3 months, and we get 3 one-to-one sessions, and you get 10 hours of practical, like actual physical work done, whether it's you need something designing or you need something tweaking on your website or you want someone to do a certain task. It's like that very practical support. So either myself or my VA will do that for you, and it's a really great program. You get Voxer support over that time as well. And those, I had 3 slots available for that, and they all sold out quite quickly, which was really good fun. And I've worked on a little branding project for someone. In one of them, I'm working on getting someone's email list completely set up and sorted out for them, and a new freebie and things like that. And then another one of them, we focused on some website tweaks for her around that as well. So it's just been like a really great program, and it's really good at that point in the year because it means you've got support going over the Christmas into January period. And it means that if there's anything that you're planning on for January, you've got that support to help you implement it and make it happen. So really that's like the essence of Get It Done. So that was really good fun. I really enjoyed offering that, and I've still got some clients within that kind of moving forward as well, which is really great. So that was a lot of fun. And then in November, I did a Black Friday offer. I had done one in 2021, and I think I'd said, when I looked back at like my old notes, I'd said I wasn't going to do one again, and I forgot that when I did the one in 2022. However, the one that I did this November, I actually really enjoyed and actually got really good results from it. So I don't know if it was just having a better offer this time round, but it actually went really well. And my whole philosophy in business is to have fun and experiment. That energy is so much lighter than taking things really seriously and getting really bogged down and everything. So it was really good fun to try that out. And I had an offer on Blog School, which is a program that I don't often offer like discounts and things on, but I did an offer on Blog School, and also a course called Rock Your Coaching Brand and Website, which kind of teaches you how to DIY your brand and your website. And I was gonna, my plan is to retire that, so that program's now retired. I had a couple of people buy that in Black Friday, but now it's no longer for sale, so it's available for them. And then Blog School, and that went really well, and I just thoroughly enjoyed it. It was just, a fun little thing to offer, and yeah, I just thoroughly enjoyed that basically. So that was really good. And then in December, so I wanted to sign off from around about the 12th of December. So not a lot happened in December. However, what did happen, which was massive actually, was I took part in Elizabeth Goddard's, Lizzie's Christmas party, which is like a big bundle. If you listen to the last episode where I was doing the 2023 planning stuff, you'll hear me talking about that. So I took part in that, and I had a product in the regular free goodie bag and a product in the page one. And basically what that is led to happen is I have had over 500, nearly 600 people join my email list as a result of being in that bundle. So that's an insanely good result. I'm really happy with that. Something that, looking back over the year, that I'd noticed had been a little bit slow was my email list growth. So all of the strategies that I put in place around blogging and around having this show and things like that, that works really well for the baseline of consistent email list growth. And what tends to happen is that the people who are coming in were replacing the unsubscribes that you naturally get when you're running an email list, which was great. But I knew definitely going into next year that I needed to do something that was going to increase that list growth on top of like having that baseline. So I'm still like I think it's really important to have a content marketing baseline that is bringing new people into your world on a consistent basis. And again, this is another thing, is that works even when I wasn't necessarily doing a lot of work. That was working in the background, so my email list didn't drop down, I didn't lose a bunch of people, it was still growing, albeit slower than I would have liked it to. So that was really interesting. But I've ended the year on a high with doing Lizzie's Christmas party, and my email list I've grown it by 600 people, so that's really, really cool. So I think it's at about 3,600 at the moment, which is amazing. So I really enjoyed taking part in that bundle. It was just really, really good. And I've worked with Elizabeth for years and years. She was one of the first people I worked with as a VA, because she used to be a VA, and I've worked with her as a mentor in lots of different ways. So that was really good fun. So my income for that quarter was $13,107 and £10,898. But that was okay. It was very much to be expected, I think, given where I was at with a lot of stuff in my business. So in 2022, my total income for the business was $65,000, and that's £52,500. So £52,500 pretty much. So I'm really happy with that. I think it's like slightly down on last year, but honestly, considering like this year, I think I've said this a few times on the show, I've worked the least amount of hours in my business this year. Like literally there was very few. Like I was making sure my clients were getting served. I was doing this show. Those were like the main things that I was doing, really, was like making sure my clients were looked after, making sure the show was getting done. And I really stepped back from Instagram. I did my evergreen Instagram grid. So I really stepped back from Instagram. I really just pulled things back to basics, and I still made that amount of money. So again, some people might hear that amount and might think that's shit, and some people might think that amount and think that sounds amazing. It all depends on how we're calibrated. Personally, would I like it to be higher? Like definitely, I would always like to be making more money in my business, but I think given where I'm at, I only transitioned fully into business mentoring for coaches at the start of 2020. So when I consider it from that point of view, although I've been running my business for a very long time, for over 10 years, I've only been solely in this for 2 years. So I'm quite happy with that level of income. And I know that kind of where I'm at now, and I think going into 2023, which I'm going to talk about soon, I really feel like there's some really practical things that I know that I'm going to do that are going to move the needle. And also I think what I saw this year, which was really encouraging, was I saw quite a shift in terms of how many of my courses and programs I was selling very passively. I know a lot of people talk about passive income and things like that, but I really noticed a massive uptick in terms of the number of people who I would just get like a Stripe notification on my phone and someone had bought a course just out of the blue. And I think that's one of the most fun things I think about running an online business, is that completely unexpected income. And that was just really good fun, and I really noticed an uptick in that this year, basically. So that was really cool. 2022 as a whole, I think it started off really well, and I don't necessarily think the way that I started the year off was unsustainable. I think what became unsustainable was adding a massive renovation on top of everything. And I think if I could have maintained the way that I started the year, then I think a lot of things would look very differently. However, having this work done in the house has been so amazing. I can't even tell you guys like how different it feels. And I'm one of these people who I'm very impacted by my environment, actually, and having a dedicated workspace and having not been surrounded by shite all of the time, actually having a space that is beautiful and that is really enjoyable to be in. And honestly, I love my space. Like, it's not perfect, it's not insta perfect, but honestly it is so transformed from how it was, and honestly it has made such a difference. So I feel like just having that done is like a real platform for me to go with as I progress into 2023. So it's just been magical, basically, having all that done. And it was also, although it was like a hard process, but physically quite difficult doing all of the decorating and things like that. And it cost, a good amount of money because we got new floors throughout the whole of the bottom downstairs of the house and all of that kind of jazz. It has been so worth it, and it's just, it's made such a difference to my life, such a positive difference. And I think this is the thing about, it comes back to something that I talk about often in terms of like our version of success, and how it's not always about chasing down like the big numbers. Sometimes like the growth for me in 2022 has been my environment and my home and my creativity. Like that's been the growth. It's not necessarily been like, oh, I've made 100 grand this year or whatever. It's been different, but it's still incredibly valuable, and that's been wonderful. So I've really enjoyed that. It's just been fantastic. 2022 has been a success as far as I'm concerned. Like, I'm looking back on it and thinking, yeah, it's been really good. There's definitely been some things that's been highlighted that I want to work on when it comes into the next year. There was definitely times that were like, as I've shared, it's not all unicorns and rainbows in online business world. There's some things that are challenging, there's some things that are tricky. I had a client who was particularly challenging and difficult, and that was an interesting experience kind of managing that. I've had times when I've just not felt motivated to show up. I've had all sorts of different things happening. When it comes to my health and well-being, that's been more of a struggle as I've gotten towards the end of the year. And I think December, one of the things as well, just to share around this quarter, like the last quarter, October to December, so Freya got quite poorly. I think it was around about the first week in December. And for you guys in the UK, and perhaps the US as well, there was a really big scare, or there was a lot of media coverage of the strep A infections that were tragically killing some children. And right about that time, Freya got sick, and we ended up having to phone 111 and got sent into A&E, and she had a suspected strep A infection. So my anxiety was literally through the fucking roof, as I'm sure you can imagine. And she was fine, she had antibiotics, she was fine. But then a few days after that, she started to not want to do a wee, basically. She just decided, I'm not going to wee. And she would go for hours and hours, and I think there was a couple of times she went nearly 24 hours without having a wee. Again, my anxiety was really off the charts. We had I think there was, within 2 weeks, we had 3 A&E visits, and it was just really sort of December from a personal point of view. I think at this point when I'm recording this, it's not the 28th of December, and my parents have got the kids. James has had to go back to work, and I'm just having this is quite nice actually, recording this and just having that process. And I had a lovely planning day, but honestly, Jesus Christ, my stress levels have been through the fucking roof in December. And it's not necessarily because I was trying to do too much in December. I think it was just one of those things where, and I think what I'm becoming aware of is that my capacity is so full. If you add something on top of that, it gets very difficult to maintain the things that I need to maintain. So something needs to shift within that a little bit, I think, so that I've got a bit more spare capacity to manage and deal with things that life throws at you, because that's life and it's going to happen. So I need to look at that a little bit as well. But yeah, we had a really difficult period with Freya. She's still not 100%. I did book into being the coach that I am. I booked in with a coach. I booked a session with a gentle potty training coach, and she was really helpful. So we had that session before Christmas, and she gave us some strategies to use which have been really helpful. So that's helped us progress things a little bit. She's not withholding our way as much. It's still happening sometimes, but it's a lot better. And I think what I've identified for me as well is that when it's anything to do with the kids' health, and I think this probably harks back to Finley, and again, if you're new to me, just to give you a bit of a quick catch up. So my little boy, who's 8, he was born prematurely, but he also was born with a heart defect. So he was about a week old when we learned that he had it, and it was a large hole in the heart. They had 2 holes in his heart that were really large and that needed open heart surgery to repair. And I think there was a lot of trauma around that. Some really not very nice things happened around all of that stuff, and I think the trauma that I have with that, and I don't use that word lightly, and I think that adds a lot of, basically, I get very stressed out when it comes to anything to do with the kids' health. It's a big trigger for me. So acknowledging that has just been really helpful as well, and just seeing that's a thing, and it is what it is. The kids' health is always going to be a bit triggering for me, but understanding why is just really helpful, and bringing that in as well. Yeah, so that's been a bit bloody stressful with Freya and all of that stuff. Yeah, so that was tough, but we had a good Christmas. We got to Christmas with everyone was pretty much well. I've got a cold now, so apologies if I sound a bit blocked up. So that was 2022, and I'm really happy with how the year went. Like I said, it was a growth in perhaps a different direction to what a lot of people would expect for an online business coach, but actually really positive for me. So that was 2022. Really happy with how everything came together, really. And like I say, I'm really happy with my home and my environment, and I'm really happy with the business. That's still a really great amount of money for having very consciously took my foot off the pedal, and a really great foundation, I think, for going into 2023. Which brings me on to 2023. So again, I went through the whole planning process that I shared in the last episode of the show, which is around 2023 planning. And that's really helped me come up with some intentions. So what I was noticing in myself when I was doing the planning session was that the energy that was coming up for me was very practical. It made me think of, Pentacles and the tarot, very practical, physical stuff, but also with there's a certain like a need that I've identified around some of the things that I need to unblock and some of the things that I need to address as well, but very much this very practical energy. So the intentions that I have are quite specific for me. Usually I go more into things in more of a feeling way, but actually these are quite specific, and I'm quite happy to be led by that. And they might change again, like nothing's set in stone again. I'll have a plan but hold it lightly, but where I'm at the moment with my intentions is that they're quite specific. So the first intention that I have is an income goal for the business, and the income goal is £70,000. So like I said, I made 52,000, just over 52,000 this year. My goal is 70, and that's like my top kind of stretch goal. I would be happy if I reached this, and that would be a great goal, is 60. So I'm quite happy to be in the realms of that. And I've always thought if I could get my business to like the 85k kind of mark, like I don't necessarily, and some people would call this a money block, but I don't want to get into the realms of VAT. And yes, I do have a large proportion of my customers are not UK based. I've probably got a little bit of wiggle room with that. I just don't want to get into the whole VAT thing. It's a thing that I cannot be asked with at all. So I want to stay away from the VAT thing. That's like where I'd love to see my business getting to eventually. In like the next 2 to 3 years, I'd love to be aiming for that. But for this year, for 2023, that's where I would like to aim at, basically. And yeah, so that's where I'm planning on going to, which is really exciting, and it feels like a doable yet motivating figure to aim towards. Now, that figure isn't just a figure that I've plucked out of thin air. It's a figure based on like what I've made this year, what I know would impact my life and business really positively, what that actually means physically in terms of having that kind of money. Like, it's not just an arbitrary figure. It's actually based on calculations that I've done and things that I've looked at. So it feels like a good, the 60 to 70k feels like a really good range to aim for 2023 for me. And then my second intention around the business is to shore up some more recurring income strategies. Not necessarily recurring income offers, but actually the things that are going to help income come in on a more steady basis. So one of the things I did an episode of the show, I'll link to it, around recurring income. And the important thing to remember with recurring income is that yes, you can have the mechanism, for example, a membership, but if you don't have the marketing to back that up, it's not going to be reoccurring because you're not going to have the people in it. I'm really interested to explore, because where my reoccurring income comes from is things like the Wholehearted Business Programme, where people are paying on a payment plan, and my one-to-one mentoring, where people are paying on pay plans. And also I have some other little recurring bits scattered in there. And it's just looking at that and looking at my marketing. Really the biggest part of this, I think, comes down to I want to increase my leads and increase my lead gen and convert more of those leads and convert more of my existing leads as well into customers, basically. So that's been really helpful, kind of looking at that and looking at how I do that on a more consistent basis. And also like building in potentially another recurring income mechanism, as long as I've got the marketing to back that up. So on this kind of point, I was sat doing my planning and I had an idea about an offer that came into my head, and I thought, oh, this is random for me. I'm going to pull a tarot card. I always have my tarot cards out. I pulled a tarot card just to get some like feedback, and I think it was it the Page of Cups or something like that? I can't remember exactly what it was, but basically I opened Biddy Tarot for the description, and it was like, you've had a new idea and it's really awesome, and blah, blah, blah. And it was just so affirming. It was really cool. So basically that new idea, I'm going to create a page for it and you guys can check it out. But essentially it is a year-long program where each month we would be focusing on a different element of non-social media based marketing. It's basically where we're getting into the marketing without social media stuff. It's very, very much based around implementation, because I think what a lot of us struggle with is we know the stuff that we should do, but actually when it comes to the implementing it and getting it done, that's more of a struggle. So it would include something like perhaps once a month, like a 2-hour workshop where we actually, like in the workshop, we do the thing that we need to do. Whether we plan the content in there or whether we create the resources or whatever, I haven't quite worked out all of that bit yet. It was basically be a year-long programme, and it would be around about the £37, £47 a month kind of place. And each month you'd get a bunch of resources and you would get that session that's really designed around helping you create a more consistent lead generation strategy that is based on out of social media, that's based on non-social media marketing. So I will put some more, so again, it's still like forming in my brain, but I will put some information in if you guys want to, it sounds like something that you'd be interested in, hop on the wait list, and then I know if it's going to be a goer or not. So that's again something that I am very aware of, is that I'm not going to put this out if it's not sustainable for me to deliver. So there's a certain number of people I would need to have signed up for that before I would go ahead with it. So I'm going to have a wait list for it basically. So I will share a bit more about that in the coming weeks. But that's one of the ideas that kind of came up around the recurring income. And that's basically just I have a bit more of a baseline of recurring income. And really, like I say, it's not, recurring income isn't like the be all and end all. I think it's your marketing that actually creates that. But this just felt like a really fun idea, basically. Yeah, so that's connected to that intention. And then my other intentions, I think those are like the main ones business wise. I mean, I've got some numbers in terms of like how many people I'd like to welcome into the Wholehearted Business program, my 6-month group program, you know, the impact that I want to have in terms of like how I'm working with people in my programs and in my mentoring programs and things like that as well. So I've got some numbers around that kind of feeling into for 2023. And another thing that's business connected is just to maintain this feeling of, so I think again I might have spoken about this before, but one of my values in business is spaciousness, and I really enjoy a feeling of spaciousness when it comes to my time and, you know, how it is that I'm doing things, and that's really important to me and I want to maintain that. So I feel like obviously this year's been a bit interesting because I've took my foot off the pedal in the business, so I could do the renovation stuff. I've enjoyed that spaciousness, but at the same time I've also noticed that has impacted my results perhaps a little bit. So I need to find this balance of spaciousness, still getting results, still doing the right things, keeping things fairly simple, or as simple as a complicated person like me can manage simple, and finding that balance. And that again goes into things like when the children are off school, being able to be flexible around that and how I want to work around that. In December as well, like I always want to take a good chunk of time off in December. So it's just really interesting in terms of like the mechanisms that I need to create in my business to help me do that more successfully. And to still have that spaciousness. So things that are coming up for me under that intention are things like batching more of my content, being a little bit more organised. I'd love to get a bit more back into Instagram. Like I've really found a contraction with Instagram, and that's okay. It's not the end of the world. Like I say, you know, I've got other marketing that goes on where I don't necessarily have to rely on Instagram at all. But I find Instagram quite fun. It's just one of those things that will always drop off the end of my to-do list. Like when things get full, but like I was saying in terms of my capacity, when things get full, Instagram is nearly always the thing that will drop off the end of the list. So it's figuring out some strategies around that as well. And then personally, I've got quite a big intention around paying off some debt. So that I talked about this in my last like review for 2021, and you know, we're aiming on paying off some debt this year. That has not happened given that we've been renovating, which is fine. And I don't know, I think debt's a really interesting one, and I'm really honest about it. Like I've got no qualms in sharing the fact that we've got debt. I think most people these days have probably got some form of debt. It's not just the, you know, mortgage related, but we've been able to utilise that to improve our life and home situation and invest in something that is an investment. And I don't necessarily see that in a really negative light. However, it is something that needs addressing. It needs to be paid off. That's a focus for me. That's an intention, is to pay off a big chunk of that this year. So whereas last year was a big expansion in terms of the stuff that we did on the house and so on, this year is not going to be like that, and that's absolutely okay. And I just want to focus on doing that. So that's one of my personal intentions. Another intention, a big intention around the wellbeing stuff. So like I said, I really felt like I just had my wellbeing stuff absolutely nailed in the first quarter of 2022. And I want to get back into that place, and I want to make sure that it's sustainable. And there's no reason why it shouldn't be. Like, I was not doing anything ridiculous. I was literally like getting on my bike, doing a Peloton workout, having a little run, like literally a 10-minute run after the nursery drop off. I was planning my meals. Like, I was going to bed on time. It was really simple, sustainable, basic stuff that like literally I need to be doing, because it's about having a semblance of self-care, and I need to just get back into that and really just embed that. And again, I think a lot of it comes down to my capacity as a human being, as a mother, as a business owner, as someone on the PTA, as someone who likes to get involved and do things. I really need to be honest with myself in terms of what my capacity is for all of these things. So that's woven into that intention. And then other fun intentions, like I want to spend more time in nature. We've got a local wild swimming club that I want to join. I want to do at least a couple of wild swims. Something I've always wanted to do is to do wild swimming and have that nature connection. We've got a National Trust pass. I want to make more use of that and go other new places with the kids and just get outside, because getting outside into nature, like I know I'm preaching to the choir here because you guys get it, but getting out in nature makes me feel so much better all of the time. So that's a big part of it. Connected to that as well, I want to get some outdoor play equipment in our garden so that the kids can be outside more. So it's just these really fun intentions around that. And then also around a family holiday. So we haven't gone abroad for a very long time. Like we're talking, like Finley's never been abroad and he's 8. And I think we went to Berlin a little bit before he was born. So we haven't been abroad for a really long time. All of our passports have run out. Travel is not a massively high priority for me. I'm a bit of a home bird. I'm quite happy to do stuff in the UK and stuff like that. However, I really do want to get away, but it's not going to be this year. I think it's going to be in 2024. So I want to plan this year for some getting away in 2024, which includes getting all of our passports done, planning what it is that we're going to do, booking something, paying it off, like all of that. That's going to happen this year. But also this year, I still want to get away as a family and do some family stuff. So we've got relatives in Brighton. We used to always go down to Brighton, so it'd be lovely to have a trip down to Brighton for a couple of days. And also I really fancy perhaps like a holiday up in Scotland. Scotland is somewhere that is so literally on our doorstep up in the northeast of England that I really haven't explored very much. So I really love to do a bit more exploring in Scotland. I always love Northumberland. Like it's where I always used to go as a kid, and the Northumberland coast is, I feel like I don't really want to talk about it because it's such a beautiful place and it's like undiscovered, but the Northumberland coast is stunning. So we've got lots of great places we can go really close to home actually. So that will be really fun as well. And then another thing that we want to do that's another like house related thing is we want to get our conservatory sorted out. So we've got quite a basic, ugly conservatory on the back of the house. However, I wouldn't get rid of it. It's a really great extra space. It's a really nice gateway from the garden into the house, like an indoor-outdoor space. It's been a bit of a dumping ground, particularly while the renovations have been going on. It's just been full of shit. So I really want to get that sorted out. I want to have a gym space in there. So we've just set that up the other day. We've cleared some of the junk out. We've got a bit of a, the exercise bike and some weights and stuff set up. But over the year, I want to just get that all cleaned, tidied, set up as a bit of a garden room cum gym kind of space, so that it's really usable, not just for us but for the kids as well, and becomes that kind of indoor-outdoor space, which again comes back to that connection with nature stuff. Eventually we'd love to get a roof put on the conservatory and a wood burner in there to heat it, so that we've got that is a more usable space in different seasons. But for now, I'd really just love to sort that space out, and that would be amazing. So those are my main intentions. There was another thing actually, and as I mentioned earlier when I was talking about 2023, something that I've started to really get some clarity around, I think, in 2022, is around some of the things that hold me back in terms of my mindset and the things that are blocking me and things like that. And it's a lot of it is really around my kind of like self-worth and my value as a person. It sounds like really daft because you're probably thinking, well, she's here on this podcast, on this video, sounding pretty confident and stuff like that, which I am, but there's still like these kind of core things that hark back to lots of different experiences that I've had in childhood and throughout my life, where I do feel that it's holding me back. And it's things like I won't necessarily reach out to people to collaborate with people because I can't see what worth I would bring to that equation. It's putting people on pedestals and seeing them as being so much better than I am, when actually I'm pretty awesome too. But it's actually believing that inside, and there's just some stuff around that I really want to work through. So I'm on the lookout for people who can support me to work through some of that stuff, basically, so that I can start, because I know a lot of these things are holding me back in business. I know that they impact how I take action on a conscious and subconscious basis. So there's some stuff there that I know that I need to work through, and I'm really committed in 2023 to finding the support to help me do that, basically. So that's quite a big one, and I'll share a bit more about that as I go through that journey as well. This is the thing with business, and this is what makes business so interesting and so unique as well, I think, is that it's not just about sales and money and all that kind of stuff. There's this whole dimension in terms of like our self-worth and our money mindset and things like that, and it's a particular thing, I think, for coaches because of the kind of nature of work that we do. So it's fascinating. It's also very, very frustrating sometimes, but that's why I want to do the work to address some of those things as well. So I'm really excited about 2023. I say that this every single year, but there's just nothing like the being on New Year's Eve and just feeling the expanse of time ahead of you, the possibilities, the things that could happen. I find that quite exciting, that blank slate and that fresh start. I just find it really exciting and really motivating. So I always feel quite motivated and excited at the start of a new year. So yeah, I'd love to know if that's been helpful. I know that I've waffled on for quite a while. I hope that through me sharing some of the things that I've learned and some of the things that I've done, as someone who is at this point in my business, who's been doing this stuff for a while, albeit this niche is quite new, because I know a lot of the posts that you'll see will be from people who are making multiple six figures, and that's great, and I think we've got so much to learn from those people, and I'll be looking to see what they're saying as well, and what they're reflecting on and some of the lessons that they've learned. But I hope that even at like my level of business, that there's some really helpful things for you guys to think about and that you found useful, basically, as well. And again, I feel like I live like a very down to earth. I'm not one of the shiny people. I don't live in LA. I live in like Durham in Northeast England. Hopefully this is a different kind of element to what you see from other online coaches that is helpful in a different way with any luck. That's what I hope for anyway. So I really hope that's been helpful. Reminder as well, as we go into 2023, there are several ways that you can work with me. If you are looking into the new year and thinking, this is the year that I get my coaching business working, that I get my shit together, that I'm getting clients, that I know that I can make this work because other people make it work, so there's a way to make this work, then I am your girl for that. If you want to explore the ways that you can work with me, you can work with me one-to-one in my Thrive coaching and mentoring program. You can come and join Wholehearted Business, my 6-month group program, which is really great. We've got such an amazing group of women in there. Again, we've got a lovely range of support, one-to-one support as well as group support, and a lot of trainings that take you through the milestones to help you actually get clients. And that program's open all of the time. So just get in touch if you want to explore what that looks like for you. And then I've got lots of different courses and programs that can help you in a whole range of ways. And yeah, there's all those different ways. You can work with me in a one-off call. I've got a clarity call or a business planning session that you can access as well. So there's lots of different ways to work with me. And basically, if you need support in your coaching business, if you're not quite sure which of my offers is the best one for you, just get in touch. I'm not one of these people who are going to be an arsehole and be really salesy with you. That's not my style at all. I don't want to work with anyone who I can't help or who I'm not confident that I can help. So get in touch, and we're going to have a chat about what the best option might be for you. And that would be lovely, basically. So yes, I hope you have a wonderful 2023. I hope it's everything that you hope for. I think one of my former mentors, Lucy Sheridan, always used to say, I wish for you what you wish for yourself. And I think that's a really lovely thing to say. So in the words of Lucy, I wish for you what you wish for yourself. I hope that 2023 brings you everything that you dream of, and that all your intentions manifest, and that it's a magical year for you. And I will see you next time, guys. Take care. Bye.